Kayla Bennett Rossdale pressed her ear against the bathroom door of the fertility clinic, her heart shattering with every word her husband spoke. "I know, Mom, but what am I supposed to do? She can't have children. The Rossdale line ends with me if I stay with her." Her hand flew to her mouth, stifling a sob. Isabel mentioned she comes from a big family. 5 siblings, all healthy. "I'm not saying I'm considering anything, but I need an heir. Maybe this infertility is a sign. Maybe I married the wrong woman." The pregnancy test in Kayla's other hand read negative. The 15th negative in 3 years. And now her husband was discussing her replacement with his mother while his secretary waited in the wings. By midnight, Kayla would be gone. She would leave divorce papers, her wedding ring, and a letter that would destroy the man who called her broken. But Dominic didn't know she was carrying a secret that would change everything. This story is about a woman who discovers her worth isn't measured by what her body can produce, a man who learns that some mistakes cost everything, and the fragile hope that sometimes love gets a second chance. Hey besties, before we dive into this beautiful story, tell me where you're watching from and don't forget to subscribe and like so I can share more heart-stopping stories with you tomorrow. It is your beautiful way of supporting us. Thank you all. Love you guys. Now, let's begin. 3 months earlier, Kayla Bennett Rossdale stood in the marble bathroom of the fertility clinic, staring at the pregnancy test in her trembling hands. Negative. Again. The 15th negative test in 3 years. She heard the muffled sound of her husband Dominic's voice in the consultation room next door, his tone clipped and businesslike, probably on a work call while they waited for Dr. Patel to return with her test results. She pressed her forehead against the cool mirror and whispered to her reflection, "Please, please let this be it." But she already knew. Her body had been screaming the truth at her for days. The cramping, the familiar ache, the way her hopes had slowly deflated like a balloon losing air. She wasn't pregnant. She would never be pregnant. The bathroom door was too thin. She could hear Dominic clearly now. "Isabel, just handle the Singapore investors yourself. Tell them I'll video conference tomorrow." "No, I can't make it today. I'm at another appointment with Kayla." Another appointment. As if this were a dental cleaning or an oil change. Not the potential destruction of everything they'd been trying to build for 3 years. Kayla emerged from the bathroom just as Dr. Patel entered the consultation room. The doctor was a small Indian woman with kind eyes that Kayla had learned to read too well over the past months. Those eyes held sympathy now, not celebration. "Kayla, Dominic, please sit down." Dominic finally put his phone away, but Kayla noticed he placed it face up on his knee, ready to grab it the moment this conversation ended. Dr. Patel folded her hands on her desk. "The blood work confirms what we suspected. Kayla, your FSH levels are significantly elevated, and your AMH is very low. Combined with the ultrasound findings, I'm afraid the diagnosis is diminished ovarian reserve leading to infertility." The words hit Kayla like physical blows. Infertility. The word she'd been dancing around for 3 years, the fear she'd whispered to herself at 3 in the morning while Dominic slept peacefully beside her, unaware that his wife was silently breaking apart. What does that mean exactly? Dominic's voice was steady, controlled. The same voice he used in board meetings when discussing quarterly losses. It means that Kayla's eggs are depleting faster than normal for her age. Natural conception is highly unlikely. We could explore IVF, but even with that, the success rates given her specific numbers would be less than 15%. 15%. Dominic repeated the number like he was calculating risk assessment. And the cost? Kayla's head snapped toward him. The cost? I'm just asking practical questions, Kayla. IVF isn't cheap, and if the success rate is that low, we need to consider whether it's worth it. Her voice cracked. I'm your wife. Having a family with me isn't worth it. Dr. Patel cleared her throat gently. Why don't I give you two some privacy to discuss this? I'll have my nurse bring you some literature on your options, including adoption and surrogacy. The moment the door closed, Dominic stood up and walked to the window. His reflection in the glass looked like a stranger. Tall, broad-shouldered, his mixed heritage giving him features that magazines called striking. Light brown skin, sharp jawline, amber eyes that used to look at Kayla like she was his entire world. Now those eyes looked past her, through her, anywhere but at her. Say something, Kayla whispered. What do you want me to say? That we'll figure this out. That we're in this together. That you still want me even if I can't give you children. Dominic turned from the window. Of course I still want you. Don't be dramatic. Dramatic? Kayla stood up, her hands clenching into fists. I just found out I'm infertile, and you're on your phone discussing business deals. You asked about cost like you're deciding whether to invest in a failing startup. And I'm being dramatic? Kayla, I have a company to run. The Singapore deal is worth $40 million. I can't just drop everything because your wife's heart is breaking? She grabbed her purse. Take your call, Dominic. Clearly it's more important than this. She walked out of the clinic into the bright afternoon sun of downtown Chicago. The summer heat hit her like a wall, but she welcomed it. Anything to feel something other than the cold emptiness spreading through her chest. Her phone buzzed. A text from her sister Simone in Atlanta. How'd the appointment go? Praying for you, sis. Kayla couldn't bring herself to type the words. Instead, she called an Uber and gave her home address. The penthouse overlooking Lake Michigan that Dominic had bought 2 years ago. 43rd floor, floor-to-ceiling windows, designer everything. A showpiece, not a home. There were no scuff marks on the walls from children running through halls. No handprints on the windows. No laughter echoing through the rooms. Just silence and expensive furniture and the ghost of the family they would never have. 3 weeks passed like a slow death. Dominic threw himself into work with an intensity that bordered on manic. He left before Kayla woke up and came home after she'd gone to bed. When they did see each other, the conversations were surface level and hollow. Did you eat? Yes. I'll be late tomorrow. Board meeting. Okay. Good night. Night. Kayla spent her days wandering the penthouse like a ghost. She had given up her job as a pediatric nurse when they got married. Dominic had insisted. You don't need to work. Focus on yourself, on us, on starting our family. Now she had no job, no purpose, and no family to start. She began attending a support group for women with infertility at a community center in Pilsen. The meetings were held in a basement room with folding chairs and coffee that tasted like cardboard, but the women there understood her in ways Dominic never could. My husband keeps suggesting surrogacy, one woman shared. But I feel like he just wants a baby, any baby, and I'm just the defective incubator in the way. Kayla's throat tightened. That was exactly how Dominic made her feel. On their 4th wedding anniversary, Kayla made a reservation at Alinea, the restaurant where Dominic had proposed. She bought a new dress, deep emerald green that brought out the warm undertones in her dark brown skin. She spent an hour on her makeup, flat-ironed her natural hair into sleek waves. She needed tonight to work. Needed to reconnect with the man she'd married before infertility had built a wall between them. Dominic arrived home at 6:30, loosening his tie as he walked through the door. I'm exhausted. Can we just order in? I made reservations. It's our anniversary. He paused, and Kayla saw the moment he remembered. Guilt flashed across his face. Right. Of course. Give me 20 minutes to change. They arrived at the restaurant at 8. The hostess led them to a private table with a view of the city lights. Kayla tried to remember the last time they'd held hands. The last time Dominic had looked at her the way he used to, with desire and tenderness, and something that felt like love. The tasting menu tonight features. The server began, but Dominic's phone rang. I'm sorry, I have to take this. He stood up without waiting for Kayla's response. Isabel, what's wrong? Kayla watched him walk to the restaurant's entrance, phone pressed to his ear. Isabel Porter, his executive assistant. 32, blonde, efficient, always perfectly put together. She'd been working for Dominic for 8 months, and in that time, Kayla had heard her name more than her own. Dominic returned 10 minutes later. I'm sorry, there's a situation with the Tokyo office. Isabel's handling it, but she needs my approval on some contracts. Can it wait? It's our anniversary. Kayla, this is a multi-billion-dollar company. Things don't just wait because it's convenient for us. The server returned. Are we ready to order? Actually, Dominic said, we need to add a 3rd person. My assistant is joining us to go over some urgent documents. Kayla's fork clattered against her plate. You invited Isabel to our anniversary dinner? It's not like that. She's bringing the contracts I need to review. She'll just be here for a few minutes. But Isabel Porter arrived 20 minutes later in a black cocktail dress, carrying a leather portfolio and a smile that didn't reach her eyes when she looked at Kayla. I'm so sorry to interrupt your evening, Isabel said, sliding into the chair next to Dominic. But these contracts need your signature by midnight Tokyo time. She spread the papers across the table, right over Kayla's bread plate. For the next 45 minutes, Kayla sat in silence while her husband and his assistant discussed merger clauses and stock options and profit margins. They had an easy rhythm, finishing each other's sentences, laughing at inside jokes about people in the office Kayla had never met. Remember when Harrison tried to pitch the blockchain integration? Isabel laughed, touching Dominic's arm. Your face was priceless. Dominic grinned. It was the first genuine smile Kayla had seen from him in weeks. He has no idea what he's talking about. Thank God you shut that down before it got to the board. We make a good team. Isabel's hand lingered on his arm. Kayla excused herself to the bathroom. In the mirror, she saw a woman she barely recognized. When had she become so small? So invisible? She was 29 years old, and she felt like she'd already lived an entire lifetime of disappointment. Her phone buzzed. A text from Simone. Happy anniversary, sis. Hope Dominic is treating you like the queen you are. Kayla stared at the message until her vision blurred with tears. When she returned to the table, the contracts were signed, and Isabel was gathering her papers. Thank you so much for understanding, Kayla. Dominic is just so dedicated to the company. You're lucky to have a husband who cares so much about providing for you. The words were kind, but Kayla heard the subtext. Isabel knew where she stood in Dominic's priorities, and it was higher than his wife. After Isabel left, Dominic ordered champagne. I'm sorry about that. Let's enjoy the rest of the evening. But the evening was already dead. They ate in near silence. Dominic checked his phone 6 times. When they got home, he kissed Kayla on the forehead like she was his sister and went to his study to finish up some work. Kayla lay in their king-sized bed alone, staring at the ceiling. She'd lost count of how many nights she'd spent like this, waiting for a husband who never came, hoping for a baby she'd never have, becoming smaller and smaller until she wondered if she'd disappear completely. The next morning, Kayla woke to an empty bed. Again, she found a note on the kitchen counter in Dominic's sharp handwriting. Early meeting. Don't wait up tonight. She crumpled the note and threw it in the trash. Then she pulled it back out, smoothed it flat, and added it to the shoebox in her closet. The shoebox of evidence. Notes that said too busy. Texts that said, I'll try to make it. Voicemails that said something came up. 3 years of proof that she was disappearing from her own marriage. That afternoon, Kayla had a follow-up appointment with Dr. Patel. Dominic had promised to come. She texted him at noon. Appointment at 3. See you there. At 2:45, he replied, Can't make it. Emergency with the board. Just get the test results and fill me in tonight. Kayla sat in the waiting room alone, surrounded by pregnant women and their attentive partners. One man was massaging his wife's swollen feet. Another was reading What to Expect When You're Expecting with highlighter in hand. A third was arguing with the receptionist about getting his wife in for an emergency appointment because she'd felt the baby moved differently that morning. These men showed up. They cared. They were present. Where was Dominic? Dr. Patel called her back. Where's your husband today? Working. The doctor's expression softened with understanding. She'd seen this before. The partners who slowly checked out when fertility became a challenge rather than a joy. I have your latest test results. The good news is that your condition isn't as severe as we initially thought. With significant stress reduction and some hormonal support, there's a chance your fertility could improve. Stress-induced infertility is reversible in many cases. Kayla sat forward. Reversible? Yes. Your body is in fight-or-flight mode constantly. The high cortisol levels are suppressing your reproductive hormones. If we can get your stress under control through therapy, lifestyle changes, maybe even a change in environment, you could see improvement. I'm not saying it's guaranteed, but there's hope. Hope. That word felt foreign on Kayla's tongue. I'm going to prescribe you some supplements and refer you to a therapist who specializes in fertility-related stress. But Kayla, I need you to understand something. This isn't just about medical intervention. You need support. Emotional support from your partner. Are you getting that? Kayla didn't answer. The silence was answer enough. She drove home in a daze, the doctor's words echoing in her head. Reversible. Hope. Support. She needed to tell Dominic. Needed to make him understand that they still had a chance if he would just be present. Just try. Just see her again. The penthouse was dark when she arrived. She flipped on the lights and gasped. Dominic stood in the living room, his phone pressed to his ear. He was talking to someone, his voice low and intimate in a way it never was with her anymore. I know, Mom. I know. But what am I supposed to do? She can't have children. The Rossdale line ends with me if I stay with her. Kayla froze in the doorway. Isabel mentioned she comes from a big family. 5 siblings, all healthy. Her mother had 6 children without any complications. I'm not saying I'm considering anything, but Mom, I built this company from nothing. I need an heir. I need someone to pass this legacy to. The words were knives, each one finding its mark. I'm not being cruel. I'm being practical. Kayla's a good woman, but she's broken in a way that matters. And Isabel understands the business. She's brilliant, ambitious, and yes, she's made it clear she's interested. Maybe this infertility is a sign. Maybe I married the wrong woman. Kayla's hand flew to her mouth, stifling a sob. She backed out of the penthouse as quietly as she'd entered. In the hallway, she leaned against the wall and let the tears come. Broken. He'd called her broken, and he was considering replacing her with Isabel. Are you still watching? This story is about to take a major turn. Don't forget to hit that like button if you're invested in Kayla's journey, and drop a comment telling us what you would do in her situation. Subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Now, let's continue. Kayla spent that night at a hotel downtown. She couldn't face Dominic. Couldn't pretend she hadn't heard what he'd said. The next morning, she called her sister. Simone, I need to tell you something. She told her everything. The infertility diagnosis, Dominic's distance, Isabel's presence, the conversation she'd overheard. By the end, she was sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. Come to Atlanta, Simone said firmly. Come home. Stay with me and Jerome. Get away from that man before he destroys what's left of you. I can't just leave. We're married. Kayla, listen to yourself. He called you broken. He's planning to replace you. That's not a marriage, baby girl. That's a prison sentence. Kayla stared out the hotel window at the Chicago skyline. Dominic was out there somewhere in one of those buildings, probably with Isabel, making plans for a future that didn't include his wife. You're right, she whispered. I need to leave. She spent the next 2 days planning in secret. She opened a bank account in her maiden name and transferred her small savings. She contacted a divorce attorney who agreed to draw up papers. She packed a suitcase with essentials and stored it in a locker at Union Station. She bought a one-way ticket to Atlanta for Friday night. And then she wrote a letter. The letter took her 6 hours to write. She started it a dozen times, crossing out words, rewriting sentences, crying until she couldn't see the paper. But finally, at 3 in the morning on Thursday, she finished it. Dominic, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. I've left the divorce papers on your desk. Please sign them and have your attorney send them to mine. The contact information is on the documents. I want you to know that I heard you. Tuesday night when you were talking to your mother, I was standing in the doorway. I heard you call me broken. I heard you say that marrying me was a mistake. I heard you discussing Isabel like she's my replacement, a better model, a woman whose body actually works the way women's bodies are supposed to. You're right about one thing. I am broken, but not in the way you think. I'm broken because I spent 3 years trying to give you something my body couldn't produce, and you made me feel like my entire worth as a person was tied to my uterus. I'm broken because I gave up my career, my independence, my sense of self to be your wife, and you couldn't even show up to a doctor's appointment. I'm broken because I loved you so completely that I forgot to love myself. But here's what you don't know. Dr. Patel told me there's hope. The infertility is likely stress-induced and potentially reversible. With the right support and environment, my body might heal. But I'll never know if that's true while I'm with you, because you are the stress. This marriage is the poison killing me slowly. You wanted a womb, not a wife. You wanted an heir, not a partner. You wanted someone who could give you a child to carry on the Rossdale legacy without asking you to actually be present, to actually care, to actually love. I'm setting you free to find that person. Maybe it's Isabel. Maybe she'll give you the 6 healthy children you want, the ones who'll inherit your billions and carry your name. I hope she does. I hope she makes you happy in ways I couldn't. But I also hope you realize someday that you threw away something real for something hypothetical. You destroyed our marriage over a baby that didn't exist while ignoring the woman who did. You treated me like a failed investment instead of a human being in pain. I loved you, Dominic. I loved you with everything I had. But that's exactly why I have to leave. Because I can't watch you love me less every day. I can't see myself reflected in your eyes and feel like I'm not enough. I can't raise a child, if I'm ever blessed with one, in a home where their mother is invisible and their father is absent. I'm going somewhere I can breathe again. Somewhere I can remember who I was before I became your wife. Somewhere I matter. Don't look for me. Don't call. Don't try to fix this. Some things are too broken to repair. And this time, it's not my body that's broken. It's us. Goodbye. Kayla. She attached the letter to the divorce papers and left them on Dominic's desk in his home office. Her wedding ring sat on top of the stack, the diamond catching the light one last time. At 11:47 p.m. on Friday night, Kayla Bennett Rossdale walked out of the penthouse overlooking Lake Michigan. She took nothing but her suitcase, her documents, and her dignity. The Uber driver tried to make small talk on the way to the airport. Going somewhere fun. Going somewhere free, Kayla answered. She boarded the last flight to Atlanta at 1:30 a.m. As the plane lifted off, she looked down at the city lights below and felt something she hadn't felt in years. Relief. Dominic Rossdale came home at 3:15 a.m. Saturday morning. The penthouse was dark and silent, which wasn't unusual. Kayla was probably asleep. He was exhausted from another 18-hour day, but it had been worth it. The Singapore deal had closed. $42 million secured. The board was ecstatic. Isabel had opened champagne in the office, and they'd celebrated until midnight. Isabel had looked beautiful tonight. She'd worn red, his favorite color. When she'd hugged him in celebration, she'd held on a little too long, and he'd felt something stir that he hadn't felt in months. Temptation. Possibility. He'd pulled away. He was still married, but barely. In his mind, his marriage had ended the day Dr. Patel said the word infertile. He just hadn't made it official yet. Maybe it was time. He poured himself a scotch and went to his office to review some contracts before bed. The moment he turned on the light, he saw them. Papers on his desk. A letter attached. A wedding ring gleaming on top. His heart began to pound. He picked up the ring, feeling its weight in his palm. Then he read the letter. With each word, his world crumbled. She'd heard him. She'd been standing there when he'd said those unforgivable things to his mother. When he'd called her broken. When he'd discussed replacing her like she was a malfunctioning appliance. Oh God, what had he done? He read the line about reversible infertility 3 times, trying to make sense of it. There was hope. Her condition could improve. And he'd been so busy planning her replacement that he'd never bothered to ask. Dominic's hands shook as he picked up his phone. He called Kayla. Straight to voicemail. He called again. Again. 15 times before he accepted that she'd blocked him. He called Simone, Kayla's sister. Where is she? You have some nerve calling me. Simone's voice was ice. After what you did to her. Simone, please. I need to talk to her. I need to explain. Explain what? That you're a selfish, cruel man who broke my sister's heart? That you made her feel worthless because her body didn't perform on your timeline? That you were planning to trade her in for a newer model? I wasn't. I didn't mean. Save it. Kayla doesn't want to hear from you. Sign the papers and leave her alone. I can't do that. I love her. You love her. Simone laughed bitterly. You don't even know what love is. Love shows up. Love supports. Love doesn't call its partner broken and shop for replacements. You love the idea of Kayla. You loved having a beautiful wife who looked good at your charity events. But you never loved her. You never bothered to know her. The line went dead. Dominic stood in his office as the sun rose over Lake Michigan, holding divorce papers he couldn't bring himself to sign and a letter that destroyed him with its truth. He had done this. He had pushed away the only woman who'd ever loved him for who he was, not what he could provide. Before the money, before the company, before any of it, Kayla had loved him when he was just Dominic, a grad student with big dreams and empty pockets. She believed in him, supported him through the early failures, the almost bankruptcies, the nights when he wanted to give up. She'd been his partner, his cheerleader, his home. And he'd repaid her by making her feel inadequate for something she couldn't control. His phone rang. Isabel. Hey, I was thinking we could grab brunch and go over the quarterly projections. I need you to pack your things. What? You're fired, Isabel. Effective immediately. There was a long pause. Is this about last night? Because nothing happened, Dominic. I just hugged you. This isn't about last night. This is about the fact that I let you become more present in my life than my own wife. I let you fill a space that should have been hers. That was wrong. It was disrespectful to my marriage and to Kayla. So you're fired. You're making a mistake. Your wife left you. She's gone. I'm here. I understand you in ways she never could. No, Isabel. You understand my business. Kayla understood me. There's a difference. and I was too blind to see it. He hung up and called his mother. Dominic, darling, I heard about Singapore. Congratulations. You need to stop interfering in my marriage. Excuse me. You heard me. The pressure about heirs and legacy and continuing the Rossdale name. It ends now. You pushed me to see Kayla as a failure because she couldn't immediately give us grandchildren. You planted the idea that Isabel would be a better choice. You made me believe that my worth as a man was tied to having biological children. I was only trying to help you see. You were trying to control my life. Just like you tried to control Dad's. Just like you've tried to control everything. But I'm done, Mom. Done with your expectations and your judgment and your toxic obsession with bloodlines and legacy. How dare you speak to me like? Kayla is my wife. She was my wife. And I destroyed our marriage because I listened to you instead of my heart. So from now on, stay out of my personal life. Focus on your charity boards and your social clubs. But my marriage? That's none of your business. He ended the call and threw his phone across the room. For the first time in his adult life, Dominic Rossdale broke down. He sank into his chair and sobbed. Deep, wrenching cries that came from the shattered pieces of his heart. He had lost her, and it was entirely his fault. 3 days later, Dominic stood in his office at Rossdale Technologies and addressed his executive team. I'm taking a leave of absence. Effective immediately. David, you'll serve as acting CEO. Margot, you handle PR. Everyone else, you know your jobs. Do them. The conference room erupted in shock. For how long? David asked. However long it takes. Takes for what? To become the man I should have been all along. Dominic spent the next week researching therapists. He found Dr. Raymond Cross, a specialist in relationship trauma and family dynamics. On Wednesday afternoon, he sat in Dr. Cross's office and told his story. All of it. His cold, demanding mother. His father who died trying to meet impossible expectations. His fear of becoming irrelevant without an heir. His cruelty to Kayla. You treated your wife as an extension of yourself, Dr. Cross said. When she couldn't fulfill the role you'd assigned her, baby maker, legacy carrier, you discarded her emotional needs. Do you understand why that's problematic? Yes. No. I don't know. I thought I was building something important. A company, a legacy, something that would outlast me. I thought children were part of that equation. And what about love? Partnership? Companionship? Where did those fit in your equation? Dominic was silent. That's what I thought, Dr. Cross said gently. You need to do some deep work, Dominic. Not to get your wife back, but to become a whole person. Someone capable of actual intimacy, not just the performance of marriage. The sessions were brutal. Dominic unpacked 35 years of family dysfunction, toxic masculinity absorbed from his father, the belief that his worth was tied to his productivity and genetic output. He cried more in those weeks than he'd cried in his entire life. He also hired a private investigator. Find out where Kayla is. Don't approach her. Don't contact her. Just tell me she's safe. The investigator called back 2 days later. She's in Atlanta, living with her sister and brother-in-law. Working night shifts at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. Appears to be doing well. Working night shifts. At a children's hospital. Dominic's heart clenched. Kayla had returned to nursing. She was pouring her maternal instincts into caring for sick children since she believed she'd never have her own. The image destroyed him. He made a decision. 2 weeks after Kayla left, Dominic flew to Atlanta. He didn't call ahead. Didn't warn anyone. He just showed up at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta and walked into the HR office. I'd like to volunteer. Patient advocacy, maybe? I have experience in healthcare technology. I can help families navigate insurance, medical billing, that sort of thing. The HR director looked skeptical. You're Dominic Rossdale, the billionaire. Why would you want to volunteer at a children's hospital? Because I need to remember what matters. And because the woman I love works here, and I need to prove to her that I've changed. That I can show up. That I can care about something other than profit margins. The director studied him for a long moment. We run background checks. It takes 2 weeks. If you're approved, you'll start with training. This isn't a photo op, Mr. Rossdale. These are real kids with real problems. I understand. And if you're doing this to stalk or harass an employee, I'll have you banned from this hospital so fast. I'm not. I promise. I just need her to see me. Really see me. And I need to see myself differently. 2 weeks later, Dominic Rossdale began volunteering at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. He worked with families whose children had cancer, genetic disorders, traumatic injuries. He helped them understand bills, negotiate with insurance companies, find financial assistance. He held the hands of parents while doctors delivered devastating news. He sat with children during chemo when their parents couldn't be there. It was the hardest work he'd ever done, and the most meaningful. One night, 3 weeks into his volunteer work, Dominic was sitting with a 12-year-old girl named Zoe. She had ovarian cancer, and the treatment had destroyed her fertility. She'd just learned she'd never have biological children. "I feel broken," Zoe whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Like I'm not a real girl anymore." Dominic's throat tightened. He thought of Kayla, of the words he'd used, the pain he'd caused. "Zoe, listen to me. You are not broken. You are not defined by what your body can or cannot do. You are valuable because of who you are. Your kindness, your intelligence, your humor, your heart. Those things make you real. Those things make you whole. But what if I want kids someday? Then you'll find another way. Adoption, fostering, mentoring. There are so many children in this world who need love. And if you decide you don't want kids at all, that's okay too. Your worth isn't tied to your uterus. It's tied to your humanity." Zoe hugged him, and Dominic felt something crack open in his chest. Something that had been frozen since childhood. He looked up and saw her. Kayla. She stood in the doorway of Zoe's room, wearing scrubs, her natural hair pulled into a puff, her eyes wide with shock. "Kayla," he breathed. She turned and walked away quickly. Dominic excused himself and followed her into the hallway. "Kayla, please. Wait." She spun around. "What are you doing here, Dominic?" "I'm volunteering. I've been here for 3 weeks." "Why?" "Because I needed to become someone worthy of you. Someone who shows up. Someone who cares about more than money and legacy and empty ambition." Kayla crossed her arms. "You should go. I'm not leaving Atlanta. I rented an apartment. I'm staying as long as it takes. As long as what takes? As long as it takes for you to see that I've changed, that I finally understand what I lost, that I'm not the man who hurt you anymore." Kayla's eyes filled with tears. "You called me broken. I know, and I will spend the rest of my life regretting those words. But Kayla, you were never broken. I was. I was the one who couldn't see beauty right in front of me. I was the one who couldn't appreciate the gift of your love. I was the one who failed. You're only here because I left. If I hadn't walked away, you'd still be with Isabel, planning your perfect life with someone else." "No. I fired Isabel the same night you left. I cut my mother out of my personal life. I took a leave from the company. I've been in therapy 3 times a week, unpacking all the damage that made me treat you the way I did." Kayla shook her head. "It's too late, Dominic." "Then let me be here anyway. Not for you, but for these kids. Let me do something that matters. And if you never want to speak to me again, I'll accept that. But please don't ask me to leave. This work is changing me." Before Kayla could respond, a code blue rang out. She ran toward the sound, and Dominic watched her go, his heart breaking all over again. Over the next 3 months, Kayla and Dominic existed in the same space without really interacting. She saw him with patience, heard stories from other nurses about the billionaire who sat with dying children and cried with their parents. She watched him comfort a mother who'd just lost her son. She saw him reading to kids during chemo, making them laugh when they felt like giving up. This wasn't the Dominic she'd married. That man had been polished and distant and always checking his phone. This Dominic was present, messy, fully human. But she couldn't let herself hope. Hope had destroyed her before. One evening in November, Kayla was leaving after her shift when she saw Dominic in the chapel. He was alone, sitting in a pew, his head in his hands. She should have kept walking, but something made her stop. "Are you okay?" Dominic looked up, his eyes red. "Zoe died tonight." Kayla's heart clenched. She'd been Zoe's nurse, the girl who'd been told she was broken, who Dominic had told she was valuable just as she was. "I know. I was with her at the end. She asked me to tell you something." Dominic's voice cracked. She said, "Tell Nurse Kayla that Mr. Dominic loves her. Really loves her. The way people in movies love each other. And she should give him another chance because people who love that much deserve it." Tears streamed down Kayla's face. A 12-year-old girl who had every reason to be angry at the world used her last words to advocate for my marriage. Dominic stood up. "She saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself. She saw someone capable of real love. And Kayla, she was right. I do love you. Not the way I thought I did when we got married. Not as a trophy or a baby maker or someone to complete my image. I love you as a person. As Kayla. Complicated, beautiful, strong, broken, healing Kayla. Don't, Kayla whispered. I know I don't deserve another chance. I know I destroyed something precious through my own cruelty and blindness. But Kayla, I'm different now. Not because you left, but because losing you forced me to see how empty my life was. How much I'd sacrificed real connection for the illusion of success. Kayla sat down in the pew, exhausted. I don't know if I can trust you again. Then let me earn it. Let me prove it every single day. No grand gestures, no expensive gifts. Just me, showing up, being present, seeing you. And what about children? What happens if my body never heals? If I can never give you an heir? Dominic sat beside her. Then we don't have children. And that's okay. Or we adopt. Or we foster. Or we pour our love into kids like Zoe, who need someone to show them they matter. But Kayla, I need you to understand something. I don't want children to carry on the Rossdale name. I want a life with you. Whatever that life looks like. You wanted a legacy. I have a legacy. It's sitting in that boardroom in Chicago, making billions. But Kayla, that legacy will crumble to dust someday. Buildings fall. Companies fail. Money disappears. But love? Real love? That's the only thing that actually lasts. Kayla looked at him. Really looked at him. His hair was longer, unstyled. He had lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before. He looked tired but also more alive than she'd ever seen him. I went to therapy too, she said quietly. After I left. Dr. May's in Decatur. She helped me understand that I'd made you my entire world. That I'd given up my identity to be your wife. That wasn't healthy either. No, it wasn't. We were both broken in different ways. I'm not ready to come back, Dominic. I might never be ready. I understand. But maybe we could try something small. Coffee. Once a week. As friends. And we see what happens. Hope bloomed in Dominic's eyes. I would like that. They started meeting at a diner near the hospital. Wednesday mornings, before Kayla's shift. They talked about everything except their marriage. Books, music, childhood memories. Dreams they'd never shared with each other before. Kayla learned that Dominic had wanted to be a teacher before his father pushed him into business. That he played piano but hadn't touched one in years. That he was terrified of deep water because he'd almost drowned as a child. Dominic learned that Kayla had always wanted to write children's books. That she could speak conversational Spanish. That she'd been a dancer in college until an injury ended that dream. They learned each other. For the first time in their relationship, they were actually getting to know each other. On Christmas Eve, Dominic asked Kayla to have dinner with him. Not at a fancy restaurant, but at his apartment. He'd learned to cook, he said. Wanted to make her his grandmother's recipe for gumbo. Kayla almost said no, but something about the vulnerability in his voice made her agree. His apartment was small, nothing like the penthouse. One bedroom, a tiny kitchen, a living room with secondhand furniture. But it felt like a home in a way their penthouse never had. Over dinner, Dominic told her about his mother. I told her she wasn't welcome in my life until she could respect my choices. She called me ungrateful. Said I was throwing away my family legacy for a woman who couldn't give me children. I told her that Kayla was my family, and that if she couldn't accept that, we had nothing more to say to each other. Dominic, I don't want to be the reason you lose your mother. You're not. She's the reason. Her toxic expectations, her cruelty, her obsession with bloodlines and legacy. I should have stood up to her years ago. Should have protected you from her poison. After dinner, they sat on his small balcony watching the Atlanta skyline. It wasn't Chicago's dramatic view, but it was beautiful in its own way. I have something to tell you, Kayla said quietly. I've been debating whether to say anything, but I think you deserve to know. Dominic turned to her, concern in his eyes. I'm pregnant. The world stopped. What? I found out 2 weeks ago. I'm about 8 weeks along. Dr. May's helped me reduce my stress levels. I've been journaling, meditating, working with kids, which fills that maternal space. And apparently, my body healed. Dominic's eyes filled with tears. You're pregnant. We're going to have a baby. No. Kayla's voice was firm. I'm going to have a baby. I haven't decided yet if there's a we in this situation. The words hit him like a physical blow. Kayla, I need to know you want me. Not just the baby. Not just the heir you've been desperate for. Me. Kayla, the woman who might still struggle with fertility. Who might not be able to have more children after this. Who might never be the perfect wife you envisioned. Dominic took her hands. Kayla, I don't want a perfect wife. I don't want an heir or a legacy or someone to carry on the Rossdale name. I want you. Complicated, messy, beautiful you. And yes, I'm overjoyed about this baby. But even if you weren't pregnant, even if this was just dinner on Christmas Eve with you, that would be enough. You are enough. You have always been enough. Kayla searched his face, looking for the lie, the performance, the man who had hurt her so deeply. But all she saw was truth. I'm scared, she whispered. Me too. What if you change your mind? What if the baby is born and you realize I'm still not enough? That won't happen. But Kayla, if you need time, I'll wait. If you need space, I'll give it to you. If you want to raise this baby alone, I'll support you financially and emotionally from whatever distance you need. I'm not going to pressure you into coming back to me. What do you want? I want everything. I want to marry you again, properly this time. I want to be there for every doctor's appointment. I want to feel our baby kick. I want to build a life with you here in Atlanta or Chicago or anywhere you want. I want to grow old with you and remember the day we almost lost each other and feel grateful every single day that you gave me another chance. Kayla's tears fell freely now. That's a lot to want. I know, and I'm willing to earn every bit of it. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, okay, let's try. Not marriage, not yet. But let's try being partners. Co-parents. Maybe eventually something more. Dominic pulled her into his arms, and Kayla let herself be held. For the first time in years, she felt safe. 8 months later, Dominic stood in the delivery room at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, holding Kayla's hand as she brought their daughter into the world. She's perfect, the doctor said, placing the baby on Kayla's chest. Dominic stared at his daughter, tiny and pink and screaming, and felt something he'd never felt before. Not pride in an accomplishment or satisfaction in closing a deal, but pure, overwhelming love. Hi, baby girl, Kayla whispered. We're your parents. We're a little broken, but we're working on it. And we love you so much. They named her Hope. Hope Simone Rossdale Bennett. A name that meant second chances, family, and the power of never giving up. Dominic and Kayla didn't rush back into marriage. They dated for another year, going to couples therapy, learning to communicate, building trust brick by careful brick. On Hope's first birthday, on a beach in Savannah, Dominic proposed again. Not with a flashy ring or a grand gesture, but with a simple question. Will you marry me? Not because I need a wife or want an heir or need someone to complete my image, but because I love you, and I want to spend every day of my life proving that you made the right choice in giving me another chance. Kayla said yes. They remarried in a small ceremony with just family and close friends. No designer gowns or expensive venues. Just love, commitment, and the knowledge that they'd both walk through fire to find their way back to each other. Dominic never returned to Chicago. He ran Rossdale Technologies remotely and eventually stepped down as CEO, focusing instead on a nonprofit that provided healthcare navigation services for families with sick children. Kayla published her first children's book, a story about a little girl who learns that her worth isn't tied to what her body can do, but to who she is inside. They had no more children. Kayla's fertility remained fragile, and they decided that hope was enough. More than enough. She was their miracle, their second chance, their proof that sometimes losing everything is the only way to find what truly matters. Years later, when Hope asked her father about how he and her mother fell in love, Dominic told her the truth. I almost lost your mother because I was too blind to see what I had. I treated her like she wasn't enough when really, I was the one who wasn't enough. But she gave me a chance to grow, to change, to become the man she deserved. And that chance saved my life. Did you always love Mommy? Hope asked. I always loved the idea of her. But I didn't really love her, see her, know her until I'd lost her. That's my biggest regret, baby girl. That I wasted so much time being afraid to really love someone. But you're not afraid anymore. No. Dominic smiled, watching Kayla in the kitchen, laughing at something on her phone, their life messy and beautiful and real. I'm not afraid anymore. Because sometimes love means losing everything to understand what truly matters. Sometimes it takes hitting rock bottom to learn how to rise. And sometimes the greatest success isn't measured in dollars or power or legacy, but in the quiet moments with the person you love, in the laughter of your child, in the knowledge that you became the person you were always meant to be. Dominic had been a billionaire who had nothing. Now he was a man who had everything that mattered. And he never, ever took it for granted again. If you made it to the end of this story, thank you so much for watching. Please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our next upload. Leave a comment telling us what you thought of Kayla and Dominic's journey. And don't forget to like this video. It really helps us create more content like this. What story should we tell next? Let us know in the comments below. Until next time, remember that you are enough, exactly as you are.